Good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking time to join our webinar today. I'm Lynette, Senior Manager, Events and Marketing at SHRI. So we'll start in about 5 minutes as we allow the participants to slowly flow in. So in the meantime, let me just do a quick short sharing about SHRI for the benefit of those who are not our members or first time at our webinar. So SHRI, we are Singapore's leading professional HR body dedicated to powering human capital, of course, in tandem with our nation building efforts. And we are same age as Singapore itself. We've been around since 1965. So these are our vision and mission. Okay. We would like to advocate HR best practices, of course, connect a community of HR professionals and enhance the HR profession itself. So at SHRI, of course, we have our professional membership body to enhance our recognition and standing, of course, through our major events as well. And likewise, like today's sessions, where we do a lot of sharing of HR trending topics. And we also have the SHRI Academy, where we look to raise and enable HR professionalism through our School of Human Capital Management and our HR WSQ and IHRP accredited short courses. And at the SHRI Corp, we look to provide HR resources, expertise, and value-added services to individuals and organizations via our HR corporate in-house training, our consulting and advisory work as well. Okay, and of course, we love to be the HR ecosystem. We work very closely with government bodies, ministries, stat boards, and the various industry practitioners as well. So we are led by President Ms. Loh Peckham, Chief HR Officer and Advisor, Workforce Development, PSD, PMO's office. And at management, we are led by Mr. Alvin Aloysius Goh, our Executive Director. And these are the national and regional partners that we work really closely with. And of course, at SHRI, we have different levels of membership. Okay, so if you are keen to find out a little bit more, happy to chat with you after the event. And the different type of events that we do in a year. So of course, with the pandemic, all this have been moved to online, which is why I'm seeing a lot of you in webinars. I have not been able to meet any members in the last 2 years. I really hope to see people really soon, which I think will happen next year. So that's all for a quick short sharing about SHRI. So thank you again. Good morning again to everyone and welcome and thank you for joining us. Just to introduce myself again, for those who have just joined in, I'm Lynette, Senior Manager Events and Marketing at SHRI. So before we start off the webinar, I'll just share a couple of simple ground rules for the ease of your participation. Okay. So all attendees are muted for better control. We seek your kind understanding. You may make chats in the chat function box. If you can hear me, can you all say hello to me? It's been a while since we did morning sessions. We've been doing a lot of afternoon sessions. Hello. Thank you. So chats are enabled throughout the webinar. Please feel free to chat there. However, I just want to highlight, if you have any questions, please make use of the Q&A icon box to type in your questions so that we do not miss any of your questions in the fireside chat later on. Okay. And this session is recorded, the webinar recording and the slides that will be shared by our speaker later on will be shared post-webinar next week. Okay. So we have also received quite a number of questions before the webinar. They will be addressed during the panel discussion later on. However, if you have more cues, just feel free to type into the Q&A function. Okay. Great. So the theme for today's webinar is actually on the PME Task Force recent recommendation report on strengthening support for PMEs, right, for sustained and continuous employment. And we are very delighted to have invited speakers and panelists from the task force to share with us in detail the key insights and the recommendations moving forward. So huge appreciation to NTUC and SNAF for partnering us in this webinar. Thank you very much. So without further ado, let me hand over the session to our first speaker for today, Mr. Patrick Tay, Assistant Secretary General, NTUC, and Member of Parliament, Pioneer SMC. Patrick will share with us the key insights. So over to you, please, Patrick.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Lynette. And a big thank you to Lynette and Alvin, Executive Director at SHRI, for having us here today, this morning, to share with many of you. I know the majority of you are HR practitioners and professionals, so a very, very good morning to each and every one of you, and thanking you for your time to spend with us this morning. Hopefully for the next hour or so, where not just myself, I'll be doing the presentation. Actually, I should call Brother Sim Kim Guan to join me, but I promised him I'll let him rest out the presentation period. But a big thank you to PME President as well as Kim Guan for joining me today. And I'm glad I'm not alone. Later we'll do the Q&A, but before that I'll do a short presentation. But I thought good to share with you all, how this PME Task Force came about, and a bit of the genesis and a bit of a background, and also a bit of the insight, since all of you took so much time or taken your precious time away from your work and schedules and other commitments to be here this morning. I thought give you some insights and give you some of my thoughts and what's happening, particularly in this space. Firstly, again, I thank Gigi, who is co-chairing this task force. So we both of us are the co-chairs of this task force, and Big Cam, who's president of SHRI, and SHRI is also one of the U associate members of the National Trades Union Congress, NTUC, where I come from. And she's one of the key members of our task force, providing many of the inputs which have been added by many of you here, both members and of course those in the HR fraternity. I think particularly important, a bit of background, the task force actually was set up for one main reason. Later I'll flash out some slides, but I thought give you all a background. I think this is not new. I think we all know in Singapore there are a few phenomena that are happening. Imminent, firstly, an aging population. If you look at the average age of our workforce, unfortunately, is past 40 years old. And then this segment, the professionals, managers, and executives are a growing segment of our entire workforce. If you look at 10, 20 years ago, it was much smaller. Today, approximately based on labor market, MOM labor market reports, is about, if you include PMEs, the Ts is about 60%, 59 plus. If you drop off the Ts, for PMEs alone, it's about 39, 40%. So, but this is set to grow. And if you recall some of the pronouncements by Ministry of Manpower, this segment of the PMET population will grow because of rising literacy, competency, skills, as well as a bigger tertiary educated populace. Therefore, the size of PMEs will only be going up. So a majority of our workforce will be PMEs, or should I say PMETs as well. That's why not just SNEF, not just NTUC, but also SHRI. I think we're really embracing this space, particularly those in the 40s to 60s. You all know yesterday we just passed the LIRA and CPF Act to raise the retirement and re-employment age, but that's beyond 60. What we are particularly concerned is, in the past couple of years, we've been hearing a lot of ground feedback and a lot of fears and anxieties, even prior to COVID-19. So I think COVID-19 has sort of accelerated this whole anxiety and concerns on the ground. So we took courage. We intentionally didn't include Ministry of Manpower, so it's not a tripartite task force. It's a bipartite task force, first of its kind. In that we had a committee, and then we came out a report, both SNEF and NTUC. And we made it bipartite for several reasons. Firstly, of course, we wanted to strengthen our tripartite or bipartite relationship. At the same time, also, we see a very important role for both of us as employers as well as the labor movement to solicit views on the ground and really air those views, no holds barred, in a very, very clear, very succinct manner, and come up with a sort of a not just negotiated but a very balanced report, so that it will allow us to be primed for the next normal, or should I say post pandemic in an endemic status. So very, very important. So it's useful because this the whole task force started in exactly a year ago in October 2020, in the midst of the pandemic, and many of the views sought were actually very, very useful, very instructive, because it actually truly reflects the ground. Because all the questions were asked across different segments of the workforce, from your C-suite to your entry-level PMEs, and of course different sectors, public, industrial, services sector, and in various roles, in various industries, crafts, At the same time, also different genders, etc. So actually, the surveys, the results, the focus groups were very extensive, including many of you. I know some of you here participated actively, and a big thank you to everyone who has, in some way or another, answered some of our surveys and participated in some of our focus groups. So we actually consulted far and wide in Singapore with a particular focus on the local workforce. So it's about 10,000 people who have responded through our surveys and focus groups, and it's all encapsulated in this report. And this report is available online, if not through my LinkedIn or through all of our LinkedIn pages. And later on, probably we'll show you a QR code where you can scan and download this report in PDF format. I thought just use this to set a background why we took on this task, and we formed this task force to basically hear the ground and also provide MOM some feedback on the real ground concerns concerning PMEs, which are actually all of you here. Yeah, all of you here, HR professionals, practitioners, are PMEs, are part of that entire PME population in Singapore. So you play a very, very important role, particularly so in the last 18 months. Yeah, I know all of you have toiled and well, for one of a better word, suffered through the many advisories. Don't worry, I'm as deep and synced in as all of you. Yeah, just as all of you are battling with the advisories and MTF reports, I am also battling many of the advisories and reports, having them in, having to churn out all these stuff and clearing all this stuff in a very weird hours. Particularly the MTF reports or the advisories always come on Friday afternoon, and all of us are scrambling over the weekend. So get used to it. Yesterday, I mean, tongue in cheek, yesterday I was just asking some of them from MOH, why always Friday afternoon? Yeah, because they said they need to take the whole week's findings and stuff like that. And sometimes maybe Thursday or Friday afternoons you get it. Because I told them, otherwise everybody has to like pack up, bring them back their laptops and stuff like that, and work through the weekend just to come out with advisories on Monday. So this feedback has already been given. Yeah. And like I said today, I don't stand speaking on behalf of Ministry of Manpower, but basically the views from both SNEF and NTUC, and how in that journey we wanted to share some of these views and thoughts. Particularly so, some of the points actually touch on the importance of the HR community, and I can't emphasize more. And I'm glad all of you are here today, tuning to this, because it shows that you're concerned about issues concerning your staff, yourselves, the fraternity. And I think I can't emphasize more the importance of all of you HR professionals and practitioners coming together. I think it's very, very important, because I was just before this session, I was just sharing it, Beckham, Elvin, and Gigi, that when the HR community is strong, the labor movement is happy as well. Because when you are strong, you are able, and you are well closely working together, I think it further strengthens and enhances industrial relations, employee relations in the workplace. So there goes my take, my personal take on the importance of the HR community coming together, such as this SHRI platform. So kudos to the team, and I hope all of you jump on the bandwagon and support SHRI programs. Yeah, but now I shall go to the slides. Let me share screen. I'll take you through the recommendations and some of the findings that we had. Basically, I've distilled what the entire 60-page report to this about 15 slides, and I hope all of you, capture the essence of it, and also some of the messages behind it. They're actually, this report, like I said, is a combination of 10,000 PMEs, views and thoughts, and of course the task force and the various engagement sessions we have with many of you here. As shared, the task force actually, these are the main, the raison d'etre of the task force in coming up with views and really to see how we can not just level the playing field for PMEs, but also highlight their concerns, what they need, and what can help them and support them in this going into this next normal. I wanted to flesh out some of the key findings in the deck. Actually, if you distill all the 10,000 surveys and my general sense, I think PMEs are really very concerned about two things: job security and employability. And if I may repeat again, the two things are topmost of their minds. Particularly relevant because survey has been done very contemporaneously, right in the midst of the pandemic, from last year December all the way till 2 months ago. So actually, it's very, very fresh data. Two things top their minds: job security and employability. So take note of this. It concerns them quite a bit. And if you look at this, the top 3 needs: support for employment opportunities, and this was done in December last year. We had done sort of, I wouldn't say kind of time release, but we did it in the course of the whole 8-9 months. So to get a different sense of different questions, and then to validate some of the questions as well and the suggestions. So 76% support employment opportunities, 61% need help in protection against job losses. We know it was a tough year last year, especially when we were taking a survey in December last year, where we were kind of like in the downturn still. Of course, figures are getting a bit better, but very uneven. The distribution is very uneven and of course uncertain. And of course, job-related training. And like I said, we managed to speak to different segments of the PME populace, not just different genders, but from the young to the not so young, with a particular emphasis on the 40 to 60, because they are the most vulnerable and increasingly the bigger segment. As you all know, the 2030 thing, where we will be having we'll have the full benefit of the silver tsunami in that sense. And this exacerbated by a negative local workforce growth come in the next 3-4 years. Hopefully we can delay it more, but next 3-4 years. So we're literally burning the candles at both ends. So it's quite challenging and therefore important for us to really be ahead of the curve and try to roll out some of these things to support the environment, to create an ecosystem in partnership with all of you and all of us here, so that we can ward against some of these unfortunate things that may happen because of various challenges. So the younger segment, interestingly, they are very, very, very aware that there's a lot of disruption, a lot of change in skills and transformation of jobs and reorganization, etc. So they are fully cognizant of that, and they want to be able to pick up the skills to stay relevant for the new jobs and the new economy and the new opportunities. The mature PMEs a bit more concerned about their age. So later I'll share a few slides. They're a bit concerned that their age may be a major impediment in them landing the next job for a variety of reasons. And thirdly, one of the fears, particularly accentuated, I know many of you are in these sectors, the modern services sector, i.e. ICT, professional services, and financial. And they do see that this perception that there's a bit of unfair competition. And this is not new. We have heard many discussions inside Parliament and outside as well on this topic. So compared to the younger peers, the mature PMEs seem less confident about opportunities, and they really attribute it to their age. So this is something which we are also concerned, and I think this is something we need to address in the deck of recommendations. Yeah. So these are some of the findings. It's available in the report as well. Now, likewise, mature PMEs also we found that when we surveyed them some questions like how long do you take the next job, how long do you what do you experience in the workplace. So interestingly, or should I say, it validates some of our anecdotal experiences. Yeah, they find that mature PMEs are indeed definitely more vulnerable and face a variety of challenges such as these, as per highlighted. And therefore, some of the key takeaways were that it's important to support our mature PMEs to give them a better sense of, as I mentioned, job security and employability. And they have floated several ideas. Yeah, some ideas, for example, like whether we should reserve jobs for Singaporean PMEs. I know many of you would have read Straits Times headline, or should I say not headline, but headline with one of the articles embedded within the ST earlier this year. We talked about reserving HR jobs possibly. Yeah, and then that was one of the feedback. Actually, Secretary NTUC, Brother Ng Chee Meng, was actually sharing feedback of some of the sessions from the feedback results and the dipstick. Not so much our position, but the feedback from the ground. So I thought to clarify this now, because I think we were sharing, and then the press put it on the top line, and are we going that direction? So there are different quarters, different sensing. But essentially, in case you're not aware, I actually filed a parliamentary question, and Ministry of Manpower has come out quite clearly that 90% of our HR jobs in Singapore, we have about 36,000 HR jobs in Singapore, and 90% are actually held, positions are in the HR fraternity are held by Singaporeans. So that's to share with everyone, because we were, when this feedback came, it was a bit of a concern. So we double checked on it and double clicked on it. And many of them also shared about whether we can do unemployment support for PMEs, particularly I think because of these different cycles and challenges. Again, widening support for PMEs. I think this is something the labor movement is trying to spread our, cast our net as wide as possible. Because as I shared earlier, NTUC used to represent we were quite strong in the rank and file blue collar, but because the workforce has grown and changed quite rapidly and exponentially, and therefore what we are doing is to ensure that more of our PMEs stay within this tripartite framework and relationship. And therefore, we are coming out with PME propositions and see how we can better look after them. Well, maybe not in the traditional sense of a collective agreement or collective bargaining, but in many ways, as you can see, through training, through transformation, through various joint alliances, such as our alliance with SHRI as well. These are some of the takeaways from some of our focus group sessions. We kind of like put them down in nice mind map and charts, which are available in the full report. We have been quite transparent about it, and every single chart is available. It's not just these two, these are just samples of it. If I may go to the recommendations, there are 4 key trusts. If you look at the 4 different colors, firstly, on enhancing workplace fairness, these are the 9 recommendations divided into 4 key trusts. Firstly, enhancing workplace fairness. Secondly, on providing unemployment support and benefits, ensuring more hiring opportunities for mature PMEs, and supporting PMEs in career progression and skills progression. I repeat again, these are the 4 key trusts and 9 recommendations. It's totally applicable and particularly important. I said MOM has not agreed to every single thing. Of course, some they have started work on, like the workplace fairness TRICOM. But otherwise, these are a set of recommendations which, after 1 year of consultation, both SNEF and NTUC has worked together to flesh out for government to consider. We have sent a love note to Minister of Manpower together with these DEC recommendations for them to consider as they mull over some of the policy tweaks and programs and initiatives and various support schemes to support each and every one of us, including yourselves as human resource practitioners and professionals. So these are the 9 recommendations. I will go through them one by one, but I thought it's broadly divided into these 4 key trusts. 4 key trusts, yeah. First trust is on enhancing workplace fairness. You'll be interested to know that the HR community is actually topmost of our minds, and we find that it's the most important link and the most important group of people who actually move the needle and really make the difference. So therefore, if you look at recommendation number 1, is actually on how we can strengthen our HR community. So I'm glad all of you are here today. I think it's testimony of the fact that you're interested to really be closely networked and connected in the fraternity, and it's only through that we can move forward in many areas. And of course, we are partnering at IHRP2. We are not doing it in silo or alone. In fact, as part of this journey, we have been speaking to Mayang and his team as well in IHRP, and we are all set to work together and to help each and every one of you who are tuned in here, especially if you are HR professionals or practitioners, to raise your capabilities, and of course, hopefully, more of you will have a board seat as well as take up more C-suite positions. And we'll be most happy to see more of you taking not just local but regional, global roles. And that's one key thing we felt very, very strongly. And later on, you'll see it talk about leadership bench strength. But essentially, I think the HR community will be a very, very important segment which all of us need to partner with and work along with, because I think you are, well, in a way, for want of a better word, sandwiched in between, or you have management and then you have workers. You are the most important linchpin, to hold us together. So I thank you for all the work that you've been doing, managing all the various curveballs that have been thrown at all of us. But at the same time, also rest assured that we feel that you all can play a bigger role. And I know most of you who are tuning in may be in companies that have big HR functions or sizable enough HR function to do it dedicatedly. However, there are some SMEs who may not have that full function, and you may be wearing 4 or 5 hats at the same time. So we'll be looking at various ways that we can help augment or plug these gaps. and of course, I know quite a number of you, more than 4,000, are already accredited with IHRP, and we hope more of you can jump on the bandwagon so that we can, bring all of you to the next level and strengthen the leadership bench strength in Singapore. Again, second one is on also in the same recommendation, we had a particular focus on addressing discrimination. In fact, the Tripartite Alliance for Fair Employment Practice have been doing that. We're seeing where we can to strengthen some of their powers to basically address some of the egregious and more errant employers. I think we have publicly said it, both myself, Gigi, and all of us, that majority of the employers are fair and responsible, and some even very, very progressive. But however, unfortunately, there are a few black sheep, or maybe some practices they may be kept under the radar. So we hope through this to really address some of these and really, to the best of our ability, eradicate some of these unfair or discriminatory practices on the ground. Yeah. So just to reassure everyone, I think we are in the midst of the TRICOM. Both Gigi and myself are involved with the Tripartite Committee on Workplace Fairness. This is actually one of the key things we are looking at. Whether I think legislation will be the final straw on the camel's back, but again, we are looking at the various measures in terms of policy and programs, etc. Recommendation 2 is on strengthening the Singaporean core. I mean, this is not a new thing. I said just like all countries in the world, we want to strengthen the Singaporean core for a variety of reasons, so that we can stay competitive at the same time, and we need to balance this. It's not an easy task. I know some of you operate in this space, and yeah, a bit of a tussle and a bit of a dilemma as well, because I know Ministry of Manpower has tightened some of the EP criteria, salary thresholds, etc. And we're trying to put it this way, we are hoping to see a more I wouldn't say flexible, but a point system where we are able to ensure that those who really are in severe shortage of skills, we can import those skills, and then where those that we feel that there are a lot of locals that are keen and able and can take those positions, we will try to encourage that. So I think that the key is to find that right balance. Not an easy task. So this one has a lot of tripartite discussions and of course policy discussions over. But at the same time also we want to ensure that if we really provide a green lane or allows skills to be, or foreign talent to be brought in, we hope to see a very concerted, very organized, systematic transfer of skills. It can't be in perpetuity, but we will hope to see some formal skills transfer, and really that's why we gave these recommendations to support that journey in that skills transfer. Third, we're looking at Tripartite Work Group to review the scope of union representation. This is something I shared earlier. We will form a Tripartite Work Group. It has not been formally announced yet, but we hope to see this happen for a variety of reasons. Actually, not just union representation, but how to ensure our laws and legislation be more inclusive, to be representative and relevant to the entire workforce of Singapore because of the changing workforce profile. Second, trust, providing unemployment support and benefits. There's something I thought behind the scenes, just to share with everyone. NTUC, we have one social enterprise called NTUC Income. We use the word unemployment support. We didn't say unemployment insurance because we did a 6-month journey actually behind the scenes, trying to do the actual and study whether the labor movement can actually come up with an unemployment insurance scheme. And our conclusion after 6 months, lots of lost sleep and long nights and plucked hairs, will be that it's not financially sustainable for labor movement to really power a scheme for the benefit of all, for a variety of reasons. Question like how much is it? How much should we pay out? How long should we pay out? When do we pay out? And whether when there's a severe downturn, for example, or depression, whether we can hold the line or do we fold as a result of that. So all these are a lot of the uncertainties which we did our sums that we felt that it was not financially sustainable for labor movement to power this scheme. because those people who feel that they are more vulnerable won't jump on the bandwagon. Those people who feel that they may have more job security and stability may not be part of this scheme. So all these considerations are thrown in, and of course, based on the unemployment, retrenchment rates, etc., all thrown in. We did the actual. It's not viable for us to do an unemployment insurance scheme, and therefore we are calling out both employer, SNEF and us, to the government, whether you can come up with some support, not a perpetual one. You all know we have various support schemes at the ground and Comcare and workfare income supplement, etc. But more to tide them through, right? Sort of like a transitionary support, so that we don't get the moral hazards of an unemployment welfare kind of scheme, and of course coupled with active labor market policy. More trust, more hiring opportunities for matured PMEs. We see how we can. So I've echoed this again on Monday in Parliament, and hopefully you all know that previously there was this career support program. We have now the jobs growth incentive. It will end next year, and hopefully next year budget maybe they will come out with some scheme to help to provide some subvention to all of you in your companies, especially when you hire matured PMEs. Sort of like a incentive, sort of a carrot and encouragement for you to try out that matured PME for 6 months to a year, so that you can size up whether he or she is suitable for the job. At the same time, for him, for the mature PME as well, to see whether he or she has the appetite and likes the company and we want to be part of the organization. So it's a very good process. I think so far the feedback has been quite good, and we hope to make this sort of like a permanent scheme. And the financial sector has started trying this. So therefore we have suggested our recommendations along the lines of the financial sector. Trust 4, finally, more in the area of employability and skills training. Again, building a Singapore leadership bench strength, something which the various agencies like EDB, MAS, and ESG has already started. But we are seeing how we can do it in a bigger way, more sustainable, more scalable way with each and every one of you. Yeah, because we always hear the growls by employers saying, no, employees want to go overseas. And we have employees saying, hey, actually, we want to go overseas, but we don't have opportunity, or if we go, we find it very hard to come back to Singapore. So all these are the various impediments, and we are trying to see how best we can overcome this and strengthen, and so that we can see some of you taking global roles and even board roles. Recommendation 7, career coaching support. We know we have done it at the national level through E2I, through some of you who hire coaches privately, and of course WSG's Careers Connect. But otherwise, whether we can do it at the company level with some support and some subvention, because NTUC and SNAP actually have embarked on or have decided as one of the recommendations to embark on the Job Security Council that can be packaged together as one of the interventions besides training to support at the company level some of these career coaching to help matured PMEs assimilate into the transformed workplaces. A structured jobs and skills plan for PMEs to CTCs. CTC may be new to many of you, but maybe not so new to some of you who are already on board. I know some of you who are HR practitioners in unionized companies we have started this journey. We have more than 750 companies on this already, and we are very thankful for that close support. Some of you, even without company training committees, are already powering ahead. Yeah, I know I deal with some of you, particularly in the financial sector. You're already quite ahead of the curve in training and skills upgrading, particularly many of you who are in the multinational companies. But here we are trying to have a closer bipartite kind of initiative to make sure no one is left behind, and at the same time also everyone is strong. Last recommendation, number 9, will be to strengthen the nexus between trial partners to prepare the workforce for the future jobs by giving them the future skills and training. So SNEF as NTUC has agreed to strengthen our nexus through the Job Security Council to help place our mature PMEs and PMEs in general, or workers in general, into job openings and opportunities in companies where there are growth opportunities and transform jobs as well. So we'll work very closely, particularly with EDB. Well, EDB has brought in quite a number of investments, and the nature of investments are quite unique in the next 3 to 5 years, not your traditional ones, and they don't generate 10,000, 20,000 jobs like previously, but they are numbers are smaller, but also they're better paying, better skilled, and definitely we see opportunities for mature PMEs also taking on some of these roles. So that's where we how to strengthen nexus, and also with the continuing education and training institutions and IHLs as well. So on that note, that's finally 9 recommendations. And well, I think I took too much time already, but yep. So this is the I'll leave you with this QR code. Anyway, the SHRI team Lynette will be sending off this deck of slides to all of you for your perusal and safekeep. And trust that you read this report at your leisure. And do give me your comments if any. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, and I answer it myself, all the messages. So you can drop me a line there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Patrick, for the very detailed sharing of the 4 thrusts. I think the participants are dying to ask a lot of questions relating to it. I mean, honestly, your sharing has already answered some of the questions that they have sent in. But beyond that, there are more impromptu ones that are in the Q&A. So may I invite Patrick to stay on the panel discussion, and can I invite our moderator, SHRI's Executive Director, Alvin Goh, to join us now. And of course, joining Alvin and Patrick on the panel, our SHRI President, Ms. Lo Pat Kim, CHRO and Advisor, Workforce Development, PSD, PMO, and Mr. Sim Gim Guan, Executive Director from SNAF. Welcome. Over to you, Alvin.
Thanks, Lynette. Thanks, Patrick. It was really great to hear firsthand from you all the key trusts and also all the various recommendations itself. And I think a lot of great work has actually gone into putting this report together. And also welcome again, Mr. Sim, and also Pekam to this webinar. When I was reading the report cover to cover, not once, I actually read it a few times over and over again. And having been myself worked overseas and also engaging with employers and everything, the first thought that really came to mind, number one, of course, I hear Patrick's view that we are burning candles on both ends, right? But to me, there was a sense of like, are we putting too much support, and it, to some extent, create a self-entitlement mindset among the Singaporeans? And yet, in the report, it was also mentioned that the employers are looking towards the PMEs to possess characteristics like agility and resilience. How do we balance that, Patrick?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I'll let Gigi and Pekam chime in as well, sure, so that they can lend in from their perspective. Of course, I come from the labor movement. I think having interacted with all these many PMEs, I hear various concerns. I said, I think it's at the end of it, I think mindset very important. Mindset of both. Yes, we can have a deck of nice recommendations or nice recommendations, but at the same time, also at the end of the day, the mindset of both employers and employees, workers, very, very important. I think that would be the most crucial point. We didn't say mindset because I mean, I've been in this journey of lobbying for PMEs for a decade. I can tell you mindset is the hardest to change. But I think basically what we have in these recommendations try to encapsulate is to provide the support systems and mechanisms so that those who have the right mindset and able to and keen to are able to leverage on some of these things to make full use of it. Of course, you're right. Unfortunately, let's say those with a very, very negative mindset may find this, this entire thing may be all a big fuss. But I think this whole deck recommendations are there to support those who who want to make the difference and really keen. And we have met many of them personally, and who are keen and able, but maybe perhaps short of maybe certain skills, short of maybe a bit of support, short of a bit of encouragement, and short a bit of like maybe don't know really where to go, or don't have the right connections, don't know the fact that these days it's harder to get a job by just sending an email or dropping it in some mailbox. That you probably need to have good strong industry networks. So things like that. I mean, I won't go down to the details, but I think things like that we hope through this deck of recommendations and double click it twice, 3 times, and then make the support more targeted to help those who are able, willing, and keen to help themselves. I think that's key. Yeah, because yes, all said and done, it may look like have we become a welfare state? But if you read actually the fine print front to back of the recommendations, we have not just caveated, but we also said it quite clearly, that why we say certain things, and then if we provide, for example, unemployment support. If you read the top line, you say, wow, you mean we're going to be a welfare state? But if you look at the fine print, we actually said it quite clearly. Please study this carefully, because we don't want moral hazards to come along. It's not going to create an entitlement mindset, but we want to couple it with active labor market policy. What does that mean? It means the person, he or she, must also be seen proactively trying to seek out, look out, change their mindsets, and have a growth mindset, and try to actively look out and seek for a job. And therefore, this has to be done in a very careful, incremental, and of course calibrated manner. So that's where we have attempted through the report and the fine print, try to articulate some of these, why we do this and how to do best, but with some safeguards as well, to ensure that we don't get this entitlement mentality. So because I agree with you that there may be some, but for the majority, they are willing to really bite the bullet, or really have the attitude or right attitude to move ahead. We need to have the ecosystem to support them.
Thanks, Patrick. Mr. Sim, please chime in.
Yeah, so I'm going to chime in from the employer's perspective. Clearly, one of the things that we see is needed is partnership, right? We need to work together. It is not just the employer's role, and it's not just the employee's role. I think we need to be thinking about how do we go on to this journey together. So many employers will find it perhaps useful to hire someone that is exactly able to meet the job requirements, right? And I think many people use that as a quick route to bring in people that they need to drive business outcome. But I will see it from two different perspectives. One is that it's not always easy to find someone that has all the competency and the skills, because the world is changing so quickly, right? Most often, or more often than not, you do need to update the skill set. And I think that's where the employers can perhaps do better in terms of how they continue to help their employees upskill themselves, even in the current job, and at the same time preparing for the next role. And looking at it from the employee's perspective, actually, if I already can come in, do everything that you asked me to do, actually the challenge is going to be quite limited. I will not see a lot of growth in the job role. And more often than not, I think such an individual may not stay very long. But if you allow your employees to continue to experience growth and see challenge and growing at the same time, I think they will be a lot more engaged. And we all know employee that is a lot more engaged is going to be contributing that much more. So perhaps for employers, don't think about bringing someone that is 100% fitting the job role. Maybe throw a number 70%, and then the other 30% is really to equip the individual for that role. And then at the same time, it's a continuous process, right? It doesn't stop. Yeah.
Great, thanks for that. Picking on Mr. Sim's comment about employers, employees having their partnership, and also on Patrick's earlier remark about when the HR community is strong, the labor movement is happy. So coming back to PKM, PKM, you manage 16 ministries and 1,000 over HR professionals, and also you have also been involved in the public and private sector as well. And in a recent publication by Professor Tommy Koh, whereby he published on the Tembusu College, he talked about resorting to the law as a last resort, and that we should always try moral suasion first. So on that note, right, if we think about it, how can HR professional, right, play out and ensure that for us to really develop an authentic culture to really support these recommendations. And these recommendations, honestly, from my perspective, are great recommendations. But sometimes we are torn between our bosses, what our bosses might say, and otherwise. And also coming back to what Mr. Sim has just said, partnership. How do we build that?
Thanks, Alvin. I think, especially for a lot of us who are in the HR profession, sometimes we are like caught in between, right? On one hand, this is what the bosses want. On the other hand, this is what our employees are asking for. It's like, if you are doing like union negotiations, right? Sometimes I think our union is a lot more progressive compared to many other countries. But there are some who will basically in their negotiation ask for the sky, and with absolutely no regard of where it will bring the companies in terms of profitability. And if the company just give the union everything, what it means is, hey, I am going to close shop and then nobody gets employed. So it's a win-win, it's a lose-lose for everybody. So I think for HR, as we strike that balance, is important for us. And I fully support that legislation should really be the last resort. Okay. Reason being, organizations are different. When you're dealing with an SME versus you're dealing with an emerging company versus you're dealing with a mature company. When you legislate, it is peanut butter approach. I don't care what state you are. I don't care whether you're hiring foreigners. I don't care whether you're growing or you're trying to, just tahan and maintain the business. I just use the legislation, very blunt instrument, chop, and then it's like, well, we are now changing some of the CPF guidelines and all that. But the retirement age and so on and so forth, it's a very blunt instrument. So I used to work in MNCs, okay? And in MNCs, especially American MNCs, in the US, there is no such thing as retirement age. And I have excellent talent who above 60, above 65 are still very good, okay? But because even though it's an American MNC and you operate in different regions and different countries, so in Singapore, I have to, as a HR person, I have to justify and say, oh, this one we actually want to retain, doing the same job. And corporate HQ will say, yeah, but your Singapore labor law said that you can actually, cut their salary, in the re-employment and all that. So we end up with a situation where, you get, because the instrument is blunt, and while we use the instrument using the legislative powers to try to cover and protect a big population, but you cannot go down to those details. So there must be enough wiggle room. So I think, this bipartite recommendations, I think is a brilliant move not to involve MOM for a start. Okay, because there will be considerations, and there are, I think even in the Q&A chat group, there are a lot of very creative and very innovative suggestions and ideas. And if we bring the government in, you basically end up having to, they have no choice but to defend some of these policies that have been put in place. So it, in some ways, may stifle some of our ability to be creative and think out of the box. So like I said, I think for HR, for all of us in the HR profession, I know it's tough to try to balance, and as some policies changes are good, there is always the flip side. And when the instrument is too blunt, you end up, creating more harm than good sometimes. So it has to be a balanced approach, and HR, I think, while we try to balance both, I think the more progressive HR practitioners will be in a good position to advise the bosses on, hey, this is what makes sense for our business, and this is what makes sense for our employees, and this is how we should actually work with the tripartite bodies and say this is how we should move ahead for the well-being of both the employees as well as for the business.
Thanks for that. Wonderful. So I think, when I looked at all these recommendations as well, the messaging is very clear. The tonality is very forward-looking itself. And one of the key questions that were asked by the participants, and I want to shift over to Patrick for this question, Patrick, one of the recommendations was about skill transfer of EP holders to locals, and it was clearly mentioned. Yeah, when we look into the narratives that have come up, right? One of them was actually in September 2020, whereby it was reported in our local media that the experts are worried about growing job insecurity in Singapore. And Minister Vivian actually did say that, you know, the only reason that we have foreigners here in Singapore is to give that extra wind in our sails when the opportunities are there. And now that Singapore is in a storm, it needs to shed ballast, right? It could have been miscommunicated and misconstrued, you know, in many, many ways. But my view is that Singapore being an international hub for many multinational corporations, the experts do bring a lot of value. But on that note itself, if you think about the statement that was reported in today, how can we balance or promote this transfer of knowledge where there is fear and concern by the experts, and yet in the recommendations is that the foreign talents are supposed to transfer their knowledge.
Yeah, I think this skills transfer of knowledge. In fact, when I speak to many of the HR as well as head honchos in various of our organizations, including MNCs, I think many of them want to localize their functions as well, particularly the local leadership functions, and also to groom talent for their regional as well as global outfits. So I think that there's a meeting of minds. It's just that I think how it's carried out, how concerted, how easily can it be carried out is one big question mark. But however, I think to answer your question and to clarify some of the thinking and doubts, I think there are a few important parameters as in we need to take note of. I think firstly, Singapore remains open. I think that's very clear. I think that's been said not just once, twice, I think countless times by Mr. Lawrence Wong, Mr. Ong Yi Kang, Mr. Tan Si Leng. I mean, I participated in the debate, so I even said, you know, we should still remain open. I don't think Singaporean PMEs, in the 10,000 that we engaged, I think they believe that we should still continue to be open. I think that's very clear. Yeah, we continue to be open to talent. That's one. To stay competitive, because we don't have interland, we don't have natural resources. Human capital is our only most valued asset. So that's one. Second one, I think that is coming out quite clearly from a policy angle is complementarity. I think complementarity has been quoted many, many times, even from the previous ministers of manpower till today. I think that's key. I think we provide some complementarity between the foreigners or the foreign manpower actually is to provide complementarity to complement us so that where skills are in severe shortage, for example, where skills are lacking, where we want to build capabilities in those areas where we don't have capability. For example, the sustainability space. I think we are going very big on that. But we may need people who are experts in this field, in this space, for example. Or there may be a new compliance global policy in the financial sector, or new product line, or could be in the ICT or professional services sector, where because we are introducing some major initiatives globally, and we have to comply with some of these global rules, we need people with this expertise. So, but I think no one is I think even local PMEs are not complaining about bringing foreign manpower to provide the expertise in those areas which we are lacking. Nobody is complaining about that. I think the key complaint, the third thing, besides being open, the fact that we continue to be open, being complement is, I think the key thing is what many of the PMEs we speak to are unhappy, or their anxieties and unhappiness, and sometimes even anger also is when some of these roles that don't have very, very of this unique, specialized, or very, very, very high-end skills. They're actually quite generic jobs and quite localized kind of jobs, but it goes with someone of a different nationality. That's where a bit of a tension comes in, because actually this job is just a local HR business partner, for example. So I think there's this sense of hey, how come you don't need someone to operate in this local space in a very local SME? Why do you need a so that's where the unhappiness comes in, and the sense of not so much entitlement, but the unfairness, or hey, I've been so many years in this company, now you terminate or lay me off, and then you bring someone who is non-local to this role, which actually any other local can do, and myself can do. So that's where the unhappiness comes in. But fortunately, these cases are not many. Yeah, the stats are quite clear from the number of TAFEC complaints that are out. It was announced last month. So there are a couple, small percentages, but that's where we're talking about workplace fairness and how to eradicate some of these already practices, and of course also relates to the point of skills transfer. Let's say this person has a very strong knowledge of certain new product line or innovation, or even some ICT coding skills, but it can't be in perpetuity for the next 20 years. I mean, the key word is, can we have a more concerted skills transfer to bring some of these skills over to our local PMEs? So I think that's the key. That you see a very systematic, concerted transfer of skills, not something like this indefinitely a quarter bunch of sorts for in perpetuity. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for that, Patrick. Holding on to that thought, about workplace fairness, and equity and everything, and glad you mentioned about the TAFEC coming in itself. And over the last couple of years, when I look at some of the data that's been coming up, all right, considering that the Fair Consideration Framework has been around since September 2013, to me, numbers are small, but in the greater context of number of companies here in Singapore, right? But it is, to me, is to some extent the number of companies that have been highlighted by MOM for egregious practices in terms of not adhering to the Fair Consideration Framework, all right? It's creeping up. So on that note itself, what will be the measurement of success, right, for the recommendations on enhancing workplace fairness?
You're asking Gigi or myself?
I'm asking you, Patrick. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
But Gigi can also come in because Gigi comes from the employer perspective.
I think off my head, I think there are quite a number of less than 1,000, but a couple of hundred companies that are still on the watch list. As you know, MOM does very, very selective prosecution for a variety of reasons, and they have prosecuted a few of the more egregious cases. You have seen it in the newspapers being reported, and of course we are enhancing some of the TAFEC powers as well. We're hoping so that they can be a bit more investigative and find out more details to give them sufficient investigative and enforcement powers. But I think the bottom line is it's going to be a journey. We can't avoid it. It's going to be a journey. One quick measure of success would be we try to minimize this as much as possible, and the numbers on this as much as possible. And I know TAFEP and some of the various agencies are working very, very hard in having many critical conversations with many of the companies that are on the watch list. And I know some of you HR practitioners here your companies are on the watch list. So like I said, do work closely with our tripartite partners. I think the key is to try to take a concerted effort and show that you make a concerted effort to try to strengthen the Singaporean core, and as well at the same time also to drive employability and of the workers, your current workforce. At the same time, I saw some of the questions coming in where I think the tripartite partners, including Ministry of Manpower, understand that certain sectors you have a critical lack of skills, or there's a critical shortage of those who possess those skills. I think they're fully cognizant of that. That's why I think they have been, of course, now, unfortunately, in the last 18 months, because of COVID, some of these passes and some of these restrictions have added additional burdens to many of you and made it more cumbersome when you try to bring in or renew or extend or even bring in foreign manpower. So that's a bit of exacerbated because of all these restrictions. But otherwise, at plain level, I mean, if there's a severe shortage and there's really opportunities, I think you have to make a case for it. But at the same time, also, proactively show that you have taken proactive steps to try to develop people in this space. Because I'm sure if it's so shortage of skills, there must be good jobs and good paying jobs. you can't expect to have low paying jobs and many people come on board. Yeah, I think unfortunately, it has to be that balance. All of us here know that in Singapore, I mean, Ministry of Manpower, Minister Tan Sri has mentioned the median wage of PMEs in Singapore is 6,003. Median wage. So you can imagine that's a public statement on it. Median wage across Singapore, entire workforce, is like past 4,000. So I mean that's the reality. So you have to you can't expect me to have a low quality, low paying job and then try to attract more PMEs in those. It's going to be tough. But it's how you can leverage and on technology, on AI, and everything else to increase the quality of the job, to increase the job size, at the same time also make it more palatable and doable by the local workforce.
Right. Thanks for that. I just want to shift gear to Mr. Sim and also maybe Peckham to come in as well. We've been talking about expertise, changes in economies, in our economy, in Singapore economy, transformation to some extent, and also Patrick mentioned on this last remark about quality of jobs, and also in the report itself, the word training is widely mentioned in the document, and one of the key aspects is about strengthening the relationship with our local IHLs, and even for that maybe matter, for HR functions, learning and development. And it was specifically mentioned also, speed to market was mentioned inside there, right? Mr. Sim, what are your views on how employers, or even for Peckham, how HR professionals can work together to develop future-ready talent? Maybe Mr. Sim, you'd like to go first?
Okay, maybe I will use an analogy. So many of you will be familiar with IT projects, right? When we do IT projects, the past, we use this thing called the waterfall model, right? You develop your requirements, then you send it to, put out a tender, the IT company comes in and say, okay, I will take up the job. They go away, they do 1-2 years later, they come back and you realize, actually the system that is developed doesn't meet your needs because your needs have changed. And so we are talking about, even for IT, you need agile development, right? Agile development where the user is intimately involved in the development of the system together with the developer. Okay, so using this analogy, applying to training, then today, of course, our IHLs, training providers, etc., are your vendor, and then employers will be your user, right? So employers want people with the right skills that can continue to drive business outcome. But the business don't stay static, right? The world don't stay static. What you need to do, continue to change. So if you expect that, someone go to university, 3 years later come out, based on a curriculum that is developed 3 years ago, and coming out from university will be up to date with the requirements, I think we will probably be quite disappointed. So the idea is we need to be a lot more agile in the way we think about training, how we develop curriculum, how we involve the industries. So the good thing, of course, is that many of the IHLs are already, bring in the industry players as part of advisory panels, etc. But I suspect that the current process is still very much waterfall rather than agile. So we need to rethink about how it can be done. And certainly as employers, we are the ones running the business. Hopefully, we are also aware of what is happening, what is the trend, where things are heading, how we need to pivot our business, what needs to be changed, what are the new skills that are required. We need to be, as employers, engaging the training providers, IHL, to co-develop, right? And I think that would be one aspect, right? The other is when you talk about new economy, I think we are investing quite a lot in research, right? And of course, you need to be translating research into applications. And so that's another area where, as we are, IHLs are looking at developing research, etc., engaging the employers, the businesses to think about what does it now mean and what does it translate to in terms of what is the skill set that is needed by the workforce of the future that the business will need. And again, I think if we are able to do this quite quickly, we will be able to ensure that our people continue to support business outcome.
Great, thanks for that. Taking any comments from an HR standpoint?
Thanks, Alvin. I was busy trying to answer to some of the Q&A chats. And I think, I mean, there are a lot of excellent suggestions and comments. I particularly love the one that, you know, don't look at PME support in terms of just financial. Look at it in a more holistic way. And some of it could be training, and some of it could be, you know, giving them job opportunities, including, you know, especially for experienced HR people or more mature HR professionals, to help uplift capabilities for SMEs to maybe have two matured HR folks share a job to help the SMEs, so that SMEs don't have to pay a lot of money for getting some of this HR support or HR advisory. So I think, you know, I think the wisdom of our participants, it's a shame not to tap on them. And I think we should really gather some of these suggestions and feedback and input and incorporate into some of our proposed recommendations and all. So to your point about whether, you know, are we doing enough in terms of, are we giving too much to support some of the HR people? I think it's a balance between what we really want to provide and what we want to help the companies, as well as, you know, for HR, I think one of the key things is really for us to really understand the business that we are in and understand the demographics that we're in. And, you know, I think like what Kim Guan said, things change so fast, and especially in the IT sector. And I think even in HR, you know, things change so fast. We in the past, you know, when we do recruitment, we still look at CVs and all that. In fact, I was busy typing about people say, you know, age discrimination, and also with all the efforts that are being put in with TAFEP and all that. Today, I think the more progressive organizations are really looking at hiring for competencies, rather than, oh, you've got 10 years of experience, but what does that mean? And is it relevant to me? And whether you have the agility to change as the business model change, and whether you have the resilience to, you know, still hang on and get on with a particular kind of work, because that is needed. And apart from IT, I think HR competencies have changed. The role of a recruiter 10 years ago versus the role of a recruiter now. And I can bet with you, the role of a recruiter 10 years or 5 years from now is going to be so different. Okay. In the past, you look at CVs, recruiters sort through CVs and surface candidates. Today, we use AI, we use chatbot, and we tell people, you know, don't write me long grandfather story in your CV. Fill up this particular form, and I will actually have AI to surface what are the key competencies that I'm looking for, regardless of your age, regardless of your race, regardless of your gender, and so on and so forth. And I think if we are honest about wanting to hire the right kind of talent with the right kind of competencies, you know, age is just a number, right? And I think today, as we are driving more towards, especially in the virtual workforce or remote workforce, right? It's no longer whether you can come to the office to do this work, and a lot of work can be done remotely. So it's important that, you know, as a role evolves, even the role of HR evolves. I think we have to constantly look at, while we train, even in the universities or even in SHRI, and even in IHRP, when they're looking at what are the kind of competencies that are needed, we have to constantly refresh. Okay, and we have to constantly look ahead of what are the kind of skills that are emerging that can help our PMEs or our HR professionals in this case remain competitive, remain forward-looking, and remain employable. So it's beyond just HR. I think for all kinds of jobs, I think our emphasis and our focus has been a lot more in terms of how do I improve employability and lifelong employability rather than lifelong employment. Which is why I think Singapore, we got it right in the sense that, we are not a welfare state. Okay, we will only dish out subsidies or help if you continue to be employed, if you continue to show that you're helping yourself. And some of the financial help and some of the training and all that, it is there only if you are helping yourself. If you just sit back and say, help me, is in Singapore especially, it's like, I wish I could have $1 million, I could strike lottery and have $1 million. But if you don't even buy lottery, then, it's useless to have that dream. Not that I'm encouraging you to go and buy lottery, but I'm saying, you have to help yourself. And whatever we are trying to do, we're trying to uplift this economy. And all of us as employees or as workers in today's context, we have to exercise self-care, but we also have to make sure that we also take the initiative and also help ourselves before we really look at what are some of the policies that we can put in place. And as you can see, I mean, we have SNAP and we have NTUC representing the workers as well as the employers coming together. And this is a unique situation which no other country has.
Right, thanks for that.
Yeah, and Pekem, if I may just chime in, because one of the attendees, I was like you, trying very hard to answer all the questions, Q&As, questions posted, and yeah, thanks for all your questions. I've been trying very hard to key in some of the answers and quick responses. Your point you just made actually answered one of our attendees. He's anonymous, but he or she says that, we talk about balance, what are the quick things that employees and employers can do. So like you rightly pointed out, the mindsets, and I think, well, for the worker labor movement part, one of the quick wins we have already started a journey is to really get our workers skilled, prepared, basically, like I said, I call it the 3 R's, ready the new skills, relevant for the new jobs, and resilient to the new changes. I think this is important because that's why we talked about company training committees and topmost on the mind, top two things: job security, employability. So I think the quick thing to address is that where possible, we try to support you in that journey, in the job security journey, as well as in the employability enhancement journey. Yeah, so those are the quick things now. But of course, Pekem has already talked about mindset and what have you. But I said all these are all quick wins that we can do to overcome some of these challenges that are confronting many of our PMEs today.
It's so enlightening and it's so easy for me as a moderator. This, honestly, right, hand to heart, this is the first webinar that I'm doing as moderator, whereby my panelists are answering my questions and at the same time answering online virtually all the questions. And you guys have actually answered 18 questions already. How fantastic is this? So thank you so much for making my job so easy. All right. But I think as we move to some of these questions, I was just referring to one of the questions that came out from one of the group chats that Lynette has actually asked about, and we talk a lot about partnership journey, and I know you all have talked and also answered live via typing through about the more vulnerable group of people, 40 years and above itself, right? And if I look at this group of people, myself included, right? And the report focuses a lot on that. And it was actually explicitly written, if I remember correctly, about this report focuses in particular the more vulnerable group of people ages 40 and above itself. So from an older PME perspective, all right, how and what can we do? I mean, Pekem, you answered it live, but for the benefit of the rest of the audience here as well, what and how can we as an older PME, continuously remained, or rather as what quoting from you, right? Remain not in lifelong employability versus lifelong employment. How will you do that? Okay. Maybe also Mr. Sim and Patrick also can chime in.
Yeah, I think one of our participants rightly pointed out, hey, why mature PME is 40 to 60? What about above 60? So especially after all those changes in re-employment and retirement age change and all that. So I think our report should change to 40 to 70 lah. Or beyond. I think the fact of the matter is we are all getting there. At some point in time, you will get there. Question is, whether you will still be in the workforce or you will not be. But the fact of the matter is Singapore's longevity is going higher, and many of you will live to celebrate your 100th birthday. If not, your children and your grandchildren will probably live to celebrate their 100th birthday. So be prepared to be working a bit longer. And I'm always of the view that, as you can see, even though in this panel, we are all definitely in that category of 40 to 70, if not more. Yeah, I see somebody say, oh no, I don't want to live to be to that long. You don't have a choice, but if you live long and you are in a healthy state and still contributing, it's not a bad idea. Okay, so as I was saying, we are all going to live longer, and we all want to make sure that we continue to add value and we continue to live meaningful lives. Okay, so in order to enjoy our retirement age, we have to start investing in how we pace ourselves while we are working. Okay, so the way that especially HR folks, all of you who are in the call who are HR practitioners, I know the last couple of years during COVID, we are pulled left, right, center. On one hand, the government is saying, work from home. On the other hand, employers or your bosses are saying, hey, make sure your people come back to work. Otherwise, nothing gets done. And on the other hand, you have our employees who are saying, hey, MOM say, my work can be work from home. You cannot force me to go back to the office and all that. So we are in this situation where we are trying to make you cannot. Patrick's point was what, burn candles from both ends.
Burning candles at both ends.
Yeah, so sometimes it's the Mandarin term is 两岸不讨好. You try to satisfy here, you try to satisfy there, end up we are the one who get burned out. So as we maneuver and as we work through this crisis, I don't think there is such a thing as at the end of the pandemic. Okay, it's really what we learn from it and how we adapt and how we learn and to the point of how we want to pace ourselves, because as you live longer, after you retire at 80 or so, and you want to enjoy your retirement, you want to enjoy in a mentally, physically healthy state. Okay, which is why I think some of you who say, oh, I don't want to live to 100, maybe you live to 150, who knows, with the kind of technology that we have in place and the advancements in medical and healthcare and all that. But you want to have meaningful lives. So I would say, continue to learn, enjoy the journey, pace yourself, and take your breaks as necessary, so that you invest in your mental and physical well-being so that you can enjoy your retirement. And even when you retire, you may still want to contribute. So like one of you suggested, yeah, when I'm retired, I'm still very healthy, I still want to contribute to the economy. Yeah, please do so in an advisory role, or maybe in like what the participants suggested, in some of the SMEs who really don't need a full-time person. Yeah, after I retire, I can come in and can just work 2-3 days a week to beef up your HR and your talent management. So that is a win-win for both of us. Because at that age, probably you only want to spend so much time with your grandchildren before they drive you up the wall. So it's a matter of balance and have a fulfilling life.
Thanks for that, Pekan. I just want to, perhaps maybe move into the closing portion of the webinar on a lighter note. All right. Perhaps maybe I would like to ask Mr. Sim and Patrick as well. Taking on what Pekan's view about preparing, as we work longer and everything, and we move into this particular age group, what would you say to your younger self, in terms of preparing for this particular period of time, whereby it's pandemic, skill sets have got a finite shelf life? What would you say to your younger self in order to get yourself ready for this future? So, Mr. Sid, Mr. Patrick.
Okay. First, I must caveat the world have changed a lot. So when I joined the workforce, retirement age was I think 55. So now, because it's 65, you move and you continue to move. So the second thing is that when I joined the workforce, the practice of staying in one organization for significant period of time is still the norm. So my first job with the Singapore Navy was 23 years before I moved on to other roles. But what I thought have been particularly useful was that even though I may be with one organization for quite some amount of time, actually my roles within that organization have continued to change. It was not static. And there was, I would say, quite a fair bit of opportunity, as well as training. The challenge is always there. But, the SAF being what it is, we also believe that there are certain attributes that, and not meaning to be ageism here, but I think it is also true to say that physically, we will not be as strong as when we are younger, right? As we get older, right? So there are some things we are better at when we get older, some things we may not be as good at as compared to when you're young. So perhaps one of the things that we should be thinking about is also recognizing that at different life stage, we have different priorities. Having different priorities, then to choose your path forward that will help you try to find alignment between your own value, priority, and what you are actually doing. So for some, it could well be actually not full-time employment at all, could be part-time employment, and then spending the rest of the time perhaps contributing to the community, volunteering with charities and so on. And like Pekan said, it is find meaning so that you continue to be very well engaged. And if you are involved in something that you are engaged in, I'm quite sure that the desire to keep up to date is not a chore. It is not difficult because you have that interest. So a friend of mine, towards a later stage of his life, he moved into a role where he says, my hobby is now my job, right? I mean, isn't that great? Where you are doing something that you are paid for and something that you are passionate about. So I will always start by saying, in every role that you're in, is this a role that you are passionate about that resonates with you? Maybe passion is a strong word, but it must mean something to you. If the job that you're in doesn't mean anything to you, then maybe that's not the right job to be in. Seek something that has that resonates with you, and I'm quite sure that the ability to stay up to date, etc., will be there. It's quite natural. You never think that doing a hobby is hard work, right? So that's what I would say.
Thanks for that. Thanks. So, okay, Mr. Singh, you were in the Navy. Patrick, you were in the Singapore Police Force as and commander of Special Operations and Tactics, some Special Force Police Force or something, right? So anyway, coming back to you, right? What would you say to your younger self? And let's end that on a light note.
Yeah. Thanks everyone, and I can't emphasize more. I shared this earlier. I thought the 3 R's are very important. You know, staying ready, relevant, and resilient. Ready to new skills, relevant to the new jobs, because things are transforming and even further accelerated. And of course, staying resilient, because you can't really predict the very, very uncertain, very uneven recovery. So I think these 3 are very, very important characteristics. I've taken the bold move. I tried my best. The last 3 years, I've taken skills future courses. Yeah, one on fintech, and earlier this year another one with MES, IBF, and still trying to learn along that journey. So like there's this Chinese saying, 活到老学到老. I think it's very important to have this lifelong learning. You embrace lifelong learning in short, because the half-life of skills are shortening as we are talking. So it's very important for us to stay relevant. I actually question myself, and whether really training skills upgrading, is this just all talk but no really outcomes? So actually, I spent the last year with a lot of virtual learning journeys and interacting with many of the labor movements and the unions across the globe, from the French to Australians to the Brits to the Scandinavian unions, even the American unions as well. So actually, there's a universal or unanimous consensus that we really need to do these 3 R's, and that training and skills upgrading is going to be the order of the day. Even when ILO celebrated its centenary celebrations a couple of years back, where that's one key tenet that they entrenched in that centenary recommendation and document, that skills training and upgrading. We are fortunate here because each time I talk about skills training and upgrading with our international counterparts, they always give me that look, because in Singapore we have a lot of support systems, a lot of funding. I mean, if you have the will and you're keen and able to pick up something new, I think there are various channels and support, even through the labor movement, through SNAF, through SHRI. There's lots of support available. It's not the case in our neighboring countries across the globe. It's not like that. So we are in a fortunate position that we have the national resources to support that. So fully utilize that and make full use of it, to take you through and to make sure that you stay relevant, ready, and resilient in this next normal.
Thank you. So on that note, in conclusion, my view, and also the expression of some of our members as well from SHRI, I think the report is a very well written, very balanced, report itself. And from this discussion itself, we've shared so many insights on that note. And in closing itself, I would like to take NTUC's punchline: every worker matters. All right, and on that note, thank you, Mr. Sim, thank you, Mr. Patrick Tay, and of course, again, always a pleasure to have you on our sessions. So over to you, Lynette.
Thank you, Alvin, and our panelists for the very candid and insightful sharing. As Alvin shared, I think this is one of the the very rare session where we have the panelists really answer almost all the questions. I'm very happy because post webinar our team don't have to look at all the questions to do the answering. So thank you very much for doing that. And indeed, I think it has been a really very candid sharing, in the sense that the panelists were very forefront, very upfront and straightforward with the views. And I think a lot of the participants also shared their opinions and their views, which I'm sure the PME Task Force will be able to take back some of these recommendations as well. On a closing note, I just want to sum up a few of the key takeaways for myself. So I would just want to say that, as from the report itself, right, the focus is between the 40 to 60, and like Packing rightfully pointed out, maybe we have to increase that to 40 to 70, given that recently the retirement age bill just passed in Parliament again, right? And as I move towards that age group, in that sense, I think from my perspective, it is really important to take some of these advices that our panelists have shared to really help ourselves. Importantly, if we want to stay and to be employable in the market, we will get there to the certain age group in that sense at some point in time. I think we have to really help ourselves to make sure that we are ready, like Patrick shared. Our skills are really relevant, so that we can be resilient in this ever-changing workforce, especially given that with whatever that may come. We don't know whether there'll be another pandemic with the changes and fast-moving technology that's moving every now and then. And I think I really resonated with what Mr. Kim has, Kim Guan has really shared as well. You know, at different life stages, we may have different priorities. I think we need to reflect and be really sure what's the next path we want to take forward. And in that way, I think we will be able to stay employable, be relevant in that sense. And just a shout out to our HR professionals. You are the forefront for your organization and for your employers and for the colleagues that you speak for. So do keep yourself updated. Make sure that you take care of yourself in terms of mental well-being, because we saw that some of the participants mentioned that perhaps mental well-being should be in part of this. And I think Patrick really agreed to it, and we too agree to it. So please take good care of yourself, and then we can be the best for our organizations and for our colleagues. So just thank you again to all. Hope this session has really been very insightful for you. We will share this webinar recording next week along with Patrick's slides and also the report itself. As Patrick has shared, please take your time to read through. I think there are a lot of key insights that will be helpful to you as well. So just to share a couple of upcoming programs that we have in the next month. Okay, in November itself. So of course, we have upcoming the SHRI 15th Singapore HR Awards Gala presentation, which will be happening on the 19th November. We have launched it publicly yesterday, so it's on our website as well. Please do sign up. You can choose specific segments to attend, share, enjoy as we confer awards to organizations and to fellow HR professionals. Also, it's a full day event that will be filled with expert panel discussions and some learning journeys as well. So feel free to check it out and sign up for the different segments that may interest you. And on 24th November, it will be an exclusive SHRI members event that we'll be doing. Where we will share about top 8 secrets that telemagnets don't tell you. It's more of a personal branding and employer branding type of event that will be very useful. So SHRI members do keep a lookout for it as we market it. The slots are limited, so sign up quickly. Okay. And a couple of other upcoming workshops that our SHRI Corp will be running in November and December. Okay. And of course, our SHRI proprietary courses that we have towards the year end as well. Okay, so as you leave the session, you'll be brought to a survey screen. Please do provide us your feedback so that we can take them in and do better for future sessions. So without further ado, it's time for lunch. I hope you're all okay now. So enjoy your lunch and we'll see you at our next session. So thank you again to Alvin, Patrick, Kim Guan, and Pat Kim for joining us.
Thank you.
See you.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Take care. Stay safe. Bye.
Bye.